Hello, Simone. It's exciting to be here with you today. Today, we are going to be discussing us versus them mindsets. Because when sometimes I'll post transcript of our episodes into, AI to see what it thinks of the arguments that we're using.
Oh no, and it just accuses you of us
And the
versus
most
them.
frequent complaint I get is it uses the quote unquote fallacy of an us versus them mindset.
A fallacy.
And I'm like,
It's a mindset. How is a mindset invalidated? Even if it's like an evil mindset.
No,
It's
they don't
not
even call it a
fake.
mindset. They call it a psychological bias, an us versus them psychological bias. And so we'll get into like why AI thinks that this is such a bad thing. Because I hear it even more from AI than I do from typical urban monocultural people. But I do see it from the urban monoculture. People be like, oh, well, that's the us versus them, fallacy or whatever, or bias or, psychological. And I'm like, this is actually really messed up. And I would argue that the core reason why us versus them has been so widely framed as a bias is because it allows members of any potential group, and the urban monoculture has evolved this as a framework. The urban monoculture is sort of what other people call like wokeism or broadly progressivism. It allows and what's interesting is they will tell you don't use an us versus them mindset while using it themselves when talking about the deplorables or Trump voters or something like that, right? Like clearly they have an us versus them mindset, but then they will tell you, hey, you can't adopt this mindset. And it's a strategy that specifically evolved to prevent you from seeing them as the enemy and rallying around opposing them. There is a them, and they are working against your interests. Like, this is the thing, and this is why I'm so against this. Hey, I hate us versus them. It makes sense for you as a human to divide humanity into groups that oppose your interests and groups that are aligned with your interests, because there are groups that are opposed to your interests. And even more than just groups that are opposed to your interests, there are groups that are explicitly around, whether it's racial or gender or cultural groups that have banded together specifically so that people like them can outcompete people like you, right? And they make it, the urban monoculture makes it the most punishable for individuals within the groups that it victimizes most frequently to create a group identity as an us to oppose any them. So recently there was a post I saw that I thought was really shocking, that somebody just nakedly had a publication turned down because the paper right now was not taking publications from white men. We're just not going to do that. No, we haven't done enough. That is just racism and sexism. But if you said, hey, white men feel that there is a group of individuals who are opposing them in part around gender or ethnic lines, and that it makes sense for them to have some sort of camaraderie around that in terms of opposing that, the urban monoculture would completely have a conniption fit. Whereas if you look at the culture, like the groups that it uplifts, like pretends to uplift. See our episode on God, what was the episode title where we showed that basically
equality is something like
the racism of equality.
Yeah.
But like Black culture, for example, if you look at Kwanzaa, like a specific part of Kwanzaa is only shopping at Black-owned businesses. Like it doesn't see any issue as this. Yet if somebody said, I only want to shop at white-owned businesses, right? And keep in mind, I mean, presumably...
Just imagining anyone being like, support your white-owned businesses this week, that would... I don't know. Like...
Well, I mean, and people can be like, oh, come on, these businesses aren't advantaged. Well, first of all, there's all sorts of loans that they can get that clearly makes them advantaged.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, but they're subject to racism in terms of who shops there. And I'm like, we can see that that's really objectively not the case.
Well, also, like, how do you find out? How would you know that? I mean, unless they actively advertise it.
They do actively advertise it. If you
go because it's to their advantage, but like...
If you go to Google Maps or if you go to Yelp, it will say like black or woman owned business.
That's because they know it will help them. But if they thought
Right,
it would
but
hurt them,
that's
they
the
wouldn't.
point I'm making
Oh,
here.
okay.
The very fact that they are opting into listing with this identification, and I have
Mhm.
never seen a business advertise as a white or male-owned business.
Can you imagine? A
Um,
male-owned, proudly male-owned since
proudly
1984.
can we do that? Can we do that? Oh my god, I'm gonna do that with our businesses.
Oh god.
Proudly a white male-owned business. Um
Wow.
No, but the point being is that the reason why people don't advertise with that is because they know that there is a prejudice against white male-owned businesses,
Yeah, absolutely.
and that they will get fewer customers, while there is a positive prejudice towards women, or I love they say minority owned, when these days minority is such like a self opt-in identification. One of the funniest ways this shows is Native Americans have like abysmal fertility rates, and yet the quote unquote Native American population has grown by like 90% in the past 10 years. And it's just due to
Pocahontas
people
problem.
deciding
Yeah.
to identify as Native American, like
Yeah.
Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren. What was she, like 1/17th Native American or
I
something?
thought she didn't turn out to have any
Oh,
native
maybe not at all.
indigenous ancestry. Yeah, that was my understanding.
But the point here being is, and what I'm making in this wider argument, is the reason they're imposing this restriction around an us versus them mindset on you is so that you cannot recognize what they are doing to you. And
Mm.
so that the people who they victimize most cannot fight back. That's the entire purpose of this.
Mm.
And so now we'll look at the arguments that they use against an us versus them mindset to point out that they are fairly stupid arguments. So, oversimplification and binary thinking. It reduces complex issues to good versus evil, right versus wrong, ignoring nuances. For instance, people tend to excuse flaws of their own group, attributing them to external factors, while blaming inherent traits for the same issues in outgroups. This can escalate minor disagreements into full-blown divisions, as seen in political polarization, where one side deifies itself and demonizes the other. And I'm like, I don't think that that's true at all. The opposite political party is genuinely, I think, pretty vile right now. Like I don't see that much. I'm like redeeming when we attack them because of what they are attempting to accomplish and what they say they want, which is a racially segregated society. Like I don't think that that's a good thing. A racially segregated society with Jews at the bottom. I think that maybe we've seen this before and it is bad, and it makes sense to be like, them, that they're doing the thing they've done before. We need to stop this.
Presumably not a great thing. Yeah.
No, not a great thing. No, it's so funny. Like the freaking bizarre, like the sane people we know, like educated, productive people, they'll like share stuff with us that is obviously made up about things that's like happening in Gaza right now. And I'm like, you can tell this is obviously fake, right? Like you know this is fake. And no, they won't. Like the tendency to want to see Jews in the most negative possible light, I think, is incredibly high across populations, in part because, well, that's a whole other video. I'm not going to get too far into that, but I will say that we've seen this before. Like I find it crazy that was in my lifetime. I remember walking through London at night, because I don't go out at night, and seeing an angry, very large mob shouting, from the river to the sea, marching through the streets, and very explicitly anti-Semitic things. And then seeing, death to the IDF and stuff like that at the concert, this giant crowd of progressives seeing this.
Death to the IDF, death to the IDF, death to the IDF. Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF! Hell yeah, from the river to the sea.
So, just in case you forgot, the IDF is a mandatory conscription service for all people of a certain age in Israel. So, when you say death to the IDF, or at least all Jews of a certain age, you're saying death to the Jews. When you say from the river to the sea, that is the entire land of Israel. You were saying you want to eradicate all of the Jews in their homeland. So people could be like, oh, well, you shouldn't lump this group in as evil. And I'm like, they're trying to divide us into an ethnic caste system, which is at the bottom. Like, maybe we do need to treat this seriously, right? And they do directly oppose the interests of individuals like myself. I mean, anybody who is a white male in our existing economy knows very well that there are many jobs you just can't apply to anymore. I mean, I remember being told, really destroying sort of my life's dream. My life's dream was to become a professor at Stanford and at their business school, right? And that's where I got my MBA, and I did classes there, and I did all of the steps, the career paths I went down, the going into VC and private equity through the path of a search fund was the number one most common path for the professors at the university.
Yeah.
I went down it with that as my intention. Until one day I'm talking with a professor who's and he goes, oh, well, obviously this is off the books, but there is a ban on hiring white male professors right now through
forever.
anything other. There was one pathway that they could be hired if they went through the traditional academic pathway, but not through the becoming a good business person or a well-known public intellectual pathway. And I was just like, well, that sucks. I think people can, emphasize this because they've seen it in shows and stuff like that, but to actually have it happen in your own life, to work your entire life to follow all the rules to achieve your dream job, and then be told, I'm sorry, actually, this was never really available to people who were born with your skin tone, is incredibly disheartening. And people can be like, oh, well, now we're just doing it to you, what you guys did to us. And it's like, my ancestors never did this to you. My ancestors fought and died so that you could be free and equal. As I've mentioned, of the founding members of the Free State of Jones, 15 of the 50 were either kids of or siblings of my direct ancestors. You have just flopped the roles. You are acting evil. And there is a reason why we are trying to destroy this system.
Also, we know young college grads who've just come out and been told, again off the record, listen, we just can't hire you.
Don't even try. Like, we don't hire people of your ethnic group.
Yeah, like, hey, I think you're, a nice guy. You look hardworking. Don't bother. I don't want you to waste your time because it's going to waste your time. That's so sad.
Yeah, and whites need not apply. No, I mean, it's a common thing. Like, and the people who say this isn't a common thing, I'm actually sort of baffled. Are they living in a different reality? Like, do they not have white?
I mean, I could see, like, maybe in a Midwestern agricultural, farming world, that there aren't these same quotas based on identity. People are just hiring practically, and they're absolutely hiring immigrants, and they're absolutely hiring locals. Like, they're just hiring actually based on, availability, merit, like if they're willing to do the work. I do think that we're mostly talking about, honestly, the jobs that are first going to be automated away by AI, those white collar, knowledge worker, middle management desk jobs. So it's almost a moot point at this point anyway. And I almost feel like, to a certain extent, young white men have been given an advantage because they have been forced out of these jobs before they cease to exist. And they are ahead of everyone else in figuring out alternative revenue streams and careers that are not going to be on the chopping block of AI. Instead, and this is why I said, I think, for example, like women and other people who have a disproportionate advantage in large bureaucracies and these middle management roles in large companies are going to be extra screwed by the AI revolution. So, yeah, maybe it was a good thing, Yeah,
I mean, it's like, if you have a group that is very obviously being discriminated against within a social order or by a cultural system, the most effective thing you can do is to villainize creating a pan-cultural identity. Imagine if during segregation, for example, they had culturally villainized building a sort of pan-black identity in the same way that they culturally villainize any sort of like pan-white identity within a modern context.
Mm.
Or even like minority white. Like we often, I don't identify as white as much as I identify as Greater Appalachian or backwoods cultural tradition or Puritan cultural tradition, both of which I'm descended from.
Here. I think it's similar. I mean, we've talked about this many times about how we think that the concept of, I mean, at least now having spent more time working in Latin America, working with people from various Latin American, like especially South American countries, seeing this concept of being Latino or Latina or Latinx, the worst of all in the United States, is being so insensitive because they're like, dude, I'm not Latina or Hispanic. I'm like Colombian. I'm Brazilian.
They're trying to force them into this larger group.
But what bothers me though, yeah, and they are trying to force them into this larger group. What I don't get is when white people themselves are like, I'm white. When I'm like, I don't, yeah, like I'm like you. I see myself as a specific subculture that may be predominantly white, but like more has to do with, a specific European geographic region, or more likely just a cultural subculture.
Well,
like
I mean, the reason why it does make sense
for white to all just be one thing.
Well, no. But for people to attempt to build identity around this or community around this is because that is a shared reason for their discrimination. In the same way that like gay people and trans people really have very little in common and probably should not be in the same bucket. The reason why each group was discriminated against historically was largely the same reason.
Oh, like because you're not X, you're not hetero.
Right. So whether I'm of the backwoods tradition or I'm a white Catholic or I'm a white, like Cavalier descendant, regardless of that, all of these groups are being discriminated against by the same individuals. And so when they're attempting to band together to sort of work towards any form of a real equal playing field, and I love people can be like, how can you say there's an equal playing field and these groups are making more money than these groups? And I'm like, well, I mean, there's groups that out earn us in an equal playing field. Like I note that Japanese immigrants had everything taken from them and now they're out earning white people fairly.
Well, that's what I was thinking when we were talking about this too, is how like Japanese people, Jews, these have been groups that have faced systemic and long-term discrimination, and it has made them sharper in many ways. So are white men really screwed if they're now being discriminated against? Maybe not.
I mean, that's a good point. And forcing them to create their own companies and find independent sources of income is also going to make it easier to create larger families, especially at higher levels of wealth, which we're actually seeing in the statistics. I've pointed out many times that Black Americans, for example, have the lowest fertility rate of all ethnic groups in the United States by a significant margin when they're not in the bottom 20% of Black income. Okay, so next reason here, it says to not create this. Prejudice and discrimination. By categorizing people into rigid groups, it fosters exclusion, stereotypes, and even dehumanization. This can manifest in everyday settings like workplaces, where teams develop an us versus them dynamic that stifles creativity and collaboration. In some cases, it contributes to violence and systemic bias, such as policing, where officers view their role as a battle against the bad guy, or officers view their role as a battle. And I'm like, but like that's already happening. Like if you're a group that is already being discriminated against, attempting to be like, hey, we should work together. Like, that's, what do you mean? But in addition to this, the idea of prejudice or stereotypes more broadly, like stereotypes are a useful thing in terms of interacting with the world. People are different. Like diversity would have no value if everyone was exactly the same. If every human was interchangeable with every other human, then there would be no point to diversity to begin with. So because that's the case, because
doesn't the rivalry also breed healthy competition in a way that makes everyone stronger?
Yeah, and I will note here when I say diversity is, and I agree with what you just said there, that rivalry helps make everyone stronger, competition helps make everyone stronger. That's part of why capitalism produces so much more economic thriving than other economic systems. But God, what was the point I was going to make before?
Oh, sorry for interrupting you.
Oh yes, that stereotypes are very important because they're real, right? Like you can build behavioral patterns of specific groups and make predictions based on those behavioral patterns. But even more than that, through those patterns, you can build a sense of identity. Like the stereotypes of your own group help you build a sense of identity. When we look to build a sense of identity for our family, we look to the historic, backwoods cultural tradition and the Puritan cultural tradition, and the Calvinist cultural tradition, because that's who we are. And so I can't, like if those groups weren't different from other groups in some way, we wouldn't be able to learn from them, right? Like I point out to many people, and we go into more detail on this in the Pragmatist Guide to Life, the Pragmatist Guide to Relationships, I want to say, or govern. No, I don't know which one this was. Crafting Religion is where we go into it. That a good example of historic, like Calvinist, Puritan stereotypes, if you're not familiar with what they were, comes from the Ebenezer Scrooge character.
That was definitely religion. Yeah.
Which is very much just, and these are a bunch of negative caricatures, but that doesn't mean that I can't learn from them and develop something from them. I think when many people have a sense of ethnic or cultural pride, many of the things you take pride in are otherwise framed negatively by other people.
Yeah.
Like Scrooge was known as incredibly tight with money, didn't heat the house in the winter, very, all the same with us. Didn't, was logical in the way he distributed his wealth. He didn't give it to an employee just because they were closer to him, but he did donate to local shelters. It was made very clear, and saved money for that, So why does this person, Tiny Tim, deserve more from him than the community at large just because he's more adjacent to him? We often note that the entire story is sort of a corrective grape fantasy of the Calvinist stereotypes of that time period. And I read it, I'm just like, Scrooge was right. Scrooge was right from the beginning, man. Stop being so indulgent. You need to learn to be more frugal. It says he ate mush every day. But the point I'm making here is stereotypes, broadly speaking, as a society, are more beneficial than they are negative.
Well, and people of specific groups who appear to have a lot of pride in their groups are the ones I see roasting their own groups the most. There's enjoyment of the making fun of your own stereotypes. You see this a lot with Mormon culture. You see this with every culture. I mean, look at like comedians' bits. This is just how it goes.
Well, I mean, and within the urban monoculture, you are very much allowed to make stereotypes about white men.
Yeah.
There are so many stereotypes that the urban monoculture will say about white men. They'll even shout like "kill white men," and people won't lose their job over this. I mean, if that's not a sign of an extreme level of racial and gender oppression normalized within a culture, then everybody knows, like, kill hetero white men. Like, this is a thing that is said frequently in environments like Tumblr and X and Blue Sky, right? I'm sure we've gotten it as a reply to like our tweets before, right? Along with a set of stereotypes. I would rather just normalize stereotypes for everyone instead of have it be they say, oh, we need to ban people making fun of white men, because that's illogical, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for everyone being made fun of. Come on, let's have fun. There is, though, I would point out, because there's a little bit of hypocrisy in all this, a very mainstream means of us versus them mentality that is celebrated, long-standing, full of creativity, and no one's complaining about it. I mean, sometimes it leads to property damage and vandalism and occasional riots, but it's still not only a celebrated and time-honored tradition around the world, but a huge source of industry and capitalistic profit. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Sports.
Yes. Sports rivalries are amazing.
But
and funny. And I mean, there's the mascot stealing, the vandalism. Did you know about the Harvard versus Yale "we suck" card stunt? It's one of my favorite examples of a sports rivalry. Yale students posed as Harvard prep squad people. They distributed in this role placards to Harvard fans claiming that they would spell out "Go Harvard." You know how, like, audiences in a big stadium will put up cards, but then when displayed, the cards actually spelled "we suck," which is just Delightful.
Mhm.
It's a rival, like people love these rivalries. And what I love about this too is it shows how you can have big time us versus them mentality and like actually do some. I mean, that was an innocent prank, but there have been like there have been riots, there have been fights, it gets intense. And yet everyone's ultimately playing the same game. The rivalries sharpen teams against each other. They motivate
They're
people.
fun. I mean, why can't we have ethnic rivalries that I mean, maybe without the riots in the cities
Maybe
where
without the riots. Yeah, maybe without the vandalism. I
you
mean,
know what would be really fun, actually? Oh my god, ethnic-based sports teams in the US. You have, like,
no, no, because there are too many like ethnic specializations.
the ethnic specializations. You mean like the
Yeah, so
black
then
team who just
I
always
don't know if
win?
it's like
Well,
universal. I don't know if
you know, then
curling, for
everybody
example.
wouldn't even care. Like, everyone knows the black teams win every year, and so it's for the second spot that you're fighting.
It's sweet. Yeah.
Or would it just become too obvious too quickly that, like, this is actually the order of ethnicities was in this sport in terms of competence?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a little better when there's a shot at excellence. I mean, of
Honestly,
course, though,
that would do so well as a show. If I had a reality show, I would do that.
do what?
I would you know how they had that one reality show where they divided the teams into women versus men? And it did really
Oh my
poorly because
god, it
the
was like a
woman team
survival style, or was it
yeah,
just
just
Survivor?
descended into, like, self-sabotage and, like, hating each other almost immediately, and the male team was, like, all broy and just is like, "Hey, let's figure out how to fish, let's figure out how to hunt, let's build a shelter," and the women were just and they had to end up, like,
Starving.
bailing out the female team.
So bad.
Put that together, but divide people based on ethnic group. It would go so viral. It would go so viral. Yes, you'd get a bunch of complaints at the studio, but it would go so viral. And
It would go pretty,
would
yeah,
watch
I feel like people would tune in just to be
would you
like,
watch it? Would you be like, imagine if you could even, like, team Korean or something, like, have your little flag and everything.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we kinda do it with the Olympics. You just wanna see it on, some other
Well, no,
non-sports
because it's
thing.
cheating. I mean, the US wins the Olympics like I want to see it based on immigrant like specific ethnocultural groups, right? Like,
Right, because, like, the USA also just attracts the best talent from all the other countries, and then it gets to be like, "Oh, USA wins," when it's
oh
really
yeah,
just
USA wins because no, if you win the Olympics for some other country at like running or something, the USA is like, "Hey, come here, run for us," right? You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
you'll be able to eat.
yeah. It's true. Yeah, you sort of have, like, maybe 2 people from ultimately the same genetic lineage being 1st and 2nd place, but, like, USA wins because
I never understand sports because so much of it is just genetics. It's like, why are
well,
we
no, see,
even
that's why we need what's his name? Who's doing like, Roid Rage version of the Olympics. What does
Oh
he
yeah,
call
we
them?
had him on our podcast, like the Olympics, but with steroids.
Yeah.
Our episode where
What
we
does
talked
he
about
what did he call them?
still
The
the
something
Commonwealth Games
games.
or something. But anyway, it's gonna be happening apparently.
Oh, well, it was supposed to happen this summer. I wonder if it's already
Uh,
happened. Well, let's see.
Steroid Olympics. Okay, I'll go to the next one. Amplification in modern society, media and
The
social.
advanced games. Sorry.
So what happened? Did it happen?
Looks like it's been moved to May 2026.
Mm,
Mm.
you gotta give people time to get all hyped up on
I
their
mean,
drug.
to get the right regimen, it takes a while. Let's do it right. Let's do it right. I'm okay with that.
I want kid fights. Like that ABC piece that had our kids fighting, and you're like, every day is Hunger Games in our house. I actually would not mind just put sock and boppers on kids, set them after each other in like a
Cage
field.
fighting. I mean, our kids
You know,
cage in the
you
crib
see this
every
is like a
6 months.
joke, but I used to go to rodeos as a kid in like rural Texas.
Oh, they still do that. No, no, no. The kids
Um,
are still
oh
doing
yeah,
rodeo.
well, you have the
The ballerina
cow,
farms
the cattle
family.
catch.
Oh god.
So what they do is before the show, they release a cow, like a calf that like runs around, or like a pig, I think they do in some environments, and all of the kids run around in the mud, which is like where the horses are going to be doing their thing, and try to catch it. And it's a very aggressive sort of a thing. And I want more of that. I find that more entertaining than the rodeo.
Just more. You just want the Hunger Games. You just want tributes.
I do. Why
Totally
can't I
watch
have the
the
Hunger
Hunger
Games? This is clearly unfair the way society is structured.
People would volunteer 100%. People would volunteer.
Yeah. Amplification in modern society. Media and social platforms exploit this for engagement, turning differences into threats and eroding trust. Well, hold on. If they are actively targeting a group that you're in, that's saying you should still trust them even when they target you. That's a really effed up thing to be telling somebody. It can create self-fulfilling prophecies where perceived divisions become real ones, worsening problems like climate denial or social unrest. It's like, this is what's true, and what you believe isn't true. And anybody who's a climate denialist, they're in this other camp. I love, even in the AI's answer, it creates the other. But I recently saw a Reddit post about this where somebody was like, I can't believe, my grandmother who raised me posted this, and it was a meme about how a guy who had gotten a degree at like a fancy university in philosophy was about to have his power shut off by somebody who's earning a lot more and had gotten like an associate's degree from in like electronics, right? Like fixing like it's an electrician, basically just being like, hey, this is the path you want to take. And they're like, oh, the right trying to turn the working class against each other. And it's like, what? This guy was a philosophy degree as the working class who's working as a associate professor. He is not the working class, but you have identified him as such because you are trying to identify the blue collar workers as being not a group you are victimizing, but the same type of people as yourself, when they are not the same type of people as yourself.
Yeah, that's messed up.
This is what I'm talking about here when they're like, amplification in modern society, that social media are, you turn this to create group divides. They want to hide that these group divides are real and exacerbated by their side. Right? Like, and this is the thing about us versus them and why it is so threatening to the urban monoculture. Because the us, if you look at the new right coalition, you've got like the tech right, like us, who are, like pro-gay marriage, pro all sorts of things that the right no longer opposes as like a mainstream party. I would support, abortion at the level of like, within the first few days, but I would support like stricter abortion access, and it's available in any state right now, or in most states right now, certainly my own state. So like my interests all align with the Republican Party's interests. I may not support like forcing a Christian education on everyone, but I do want to get the weird trans stuff out of schools, which is what they're actually fighting for at like a government level right now, right? So like my interests are perfectly overlapping with their interests right now. And so even though we're very diverse, and this was actually shown in a graph that came out, if you look at the perspectives within the modern Conservative Party, it's like this giant circle right now.
Yeah.
The perspectives within the modern Democratic Party, it's this very, very, very tight circle.
Yeah, we did an episode on this, like the spider webs. They look like spider webs.
Did we ever publish that episode?
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah.
But the us versus them, but saying, oh, you can't create an us versus them dynamic, basically makes it so that you can't ally with people who are different from you. Because when I say us versus them, or I'm talking an us versus them concept, the us on my side includes like traditionalist Christians and Orthodox Jews and Amish and people.
Well, I think the funny thing though is when you look within the new right and you see all these different subgroups, one, the left tries to frame it as, oh, it's fractured and it can barely hold together. And actually we're very friendly, but there is a little bit of that friendly sports team type rivalry. There actually is us and them, I would argue, like the Catholics are like, yeah, you guys are going to hell for IVF. And we're like, yeah, you guys are kind of going for hell for not, like you're killing kids by not. And
for people who don't understand what she means by saying that is we think that you are morally responsible for the differences in the timeline that your choices create.
Yeah.
So if you make a choice that prevents a human being who otherwise come to exist from coming to exist, you have functionally killed that human being, regardless if that happened before the egg was fertilized or not.
And we have very animated but genial and fun in that very like sports rivalry style debates with these different groups and they express pride in their view and we express pride in our view, but we still talk and in exchange. And I do think that like weirdly the us versus them rivalry that is functional is within the new right, and a really good example of toxic us versus them mentality is between the right and the left. Maybe the issue is that us versus them only works when there's exchange. And if there isn't, then it becomes toxic. What do you think?
What do you mean exchange?
Collaboration, interplay, commerce,
Yeah, I mean,
competition.
on our My Little Pony episode, that's sort of what we show, right? Like the Pegasus and the unicorns and the Earth ponies all may be different in their capacities, but that doesn't mean they can't be friends and work together towards a common outcome against groups that are genuinely opposed to all of their interests. And that's what we're dealing with today. You know, in this episode, I've talked about like, why would diversity have any value if people aren't really different? And while I believe diversity is a thing of value, the analogy I use is this like ingredients. It has value, like not in an absolute sense. A meal isn't better because it has more diversity, because it has more ingredients. It's the right mix of ingredients to create a dish. And a chef is better off for more ingredients existing in the world, but you don't need them here in my backyard, right? And I think that what we create when we have an us, and this is what's really dangerous, is the clear thing about us versus them is us versus them rarely creates the us around just your cultural group, right? When us versus them thinking happens most frequently, it's because the us is combining multiple groups into a dish instead of just one group versus them. Like the urban monoculture doesn't need us versus them thinking, because there's a right way of doing things and there's a wrong way of doing things, and our way of doing things is the right way. You know, i.e. like the AI being like, well, you wouldn't want them not to believe in man-made global climate change, right? When, you know, if you actually look at the data, there is some reasons to doubt this. And the people who doubt it aren't like crazy or anything. This is something that I think we should genuinely be talking about. But they won't do that. They're just like, these people are stupid savages, don't listen to them. But when you get into us versus them thinking, what's really happening is you're building a coalition, because I'm saying us isn't just people like me and with my views. It's people who are opposed to the them, and you are the them. Because you're the one who has chosen, like a great example is Latin Americans, right? Like for Latin Americans to have us versus them thinking, they would have all Latin American community. They'd be like, we're different. We're different cultures. We have different stereotypes about us, i.e. we're different in many ways, but we take pride in that and we work together against those who would collectively disadvantage us because of this central reason, right? And that creates us versus them. So I think that us versus them is actually almost sort of necessary to live a moral life and protect yourself, unless you just are lucky enough to be born into, or have cowardly enough to have converted into, the dominant cultural group within a region.
Perhaps, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think though, with the rise of AI, as demographic collapse plays out, as we see dependency ratio cascades undermine governments and more centralized run societies, more centrally run societies, we are going to see, as we keep saying, the rise of techno-feudalism. We're going to see more balkanization of culture and communities. And I think we're going to see more us versus them mentality. And what I hope that we'll see is us versus them mentality in the context of trade, commerce, healthy rivalry, competition, exchange, and, you know, learning from each other, instead of this a form of balkanization that leads to raids and attempts at annihilation and genocide. So I think this is a really important subject, and I think people should be thinking strategically about how they, with their community or their culture or their religion, contextualize and work with others. You can look at how, I mean, Jews that have been victimized for so long, nevertheless do commerce with other cultures. I mean, they're very strategic about how they, I guess, exchange with the larger world, and how they, like, where they lean in with just their own communities. But I think these are things that people should be thinking about. And there's definitely a way to do this right. And there's a way to do this really to your detriment, to the world's detriment, to humanity's detriment.
Well, I love you to death, Simone. You're a very special lady. Do you have any final thoughts on why we need to? I mean, it's not just us versus them thinking, which is good. It's stereotypes, which are good. Like how look, you watch a show that celebrates a culture. Like I think a show that does a very good job of celebrating Colombian culture is what's that latest, or that recent Disney show?
Oh, is that Colombian culture?
Colombian culture. Yeah, it specifically takes place in Colombia.
Does? Oh.
So you watch the show, right? It's all stereotypes, but stereotypes are good. That's what we take pride in. You know, I'm from the redneck, like, in Puritan cultural groups. It's a bunch of stereotypes. That's what cultural pride is having pride in the stereotypes about your people.
Yeah,
right?
like I said, like if you look at all the comedic roastings of different groups, that they're performed by people of those groups,
But
and
when
they're
urban
amazing.
monoculture attempts to eradicate your ability to even see your group within stereotypes, because remember, they don't just hate the quote unquote negative stereotypes, they hate the positive ones too, like Asians being good at math or karate or something like that, right? Like all of these, you can't have any of these. And when they do that, what they're actually erasing is your ability to have pride in the ways that you are different from other people.
True. Yeah. The only thing that you can be proud of is the extent to which you assimilate with a culture that is very artificial, not
But
sustainable.
when they remove all of those sources of pride, they then say, so you're like, what? I can't be proud of anything. And it's like, well, you can be proud of what you're attracted to, what gives you pleasure, hedonism, right? Like that works. And then you get sucked into the culture, right? Like it's a very effective strategy. They shame any pride you have in your cultural stereotypes, be they positive or negative. You know, and people know I take pride in both within my culture. I often talk about the violent nature of the backwoods people, you know, scooping out, sharpening their fingernails to scoop out people's eyeballs, right? Like there's many, I don't think any group today has a stereotype that negatively violent, but, and I'm like, that's cool, man. But the point I'm making here,
I'm sure people will come up with ideas.
It's removing your ability to have pride in yourself is what they're removing when they remove stereotypes. They don't say that this is what they're doing, but it's functionally what they're doing. And no grand conspirator came up with this. It's just the groups that adopted these beliefs had an easier time converting people into it because they erased your ability to have pride in this. And then they said, but you can still have pride in Y, right? And we have a parade for you. It's called the Pride Parade. Come on, join it.
Oh, wow.
Anyway.
I think a lot of these things will change. Shall I make you pot stickers for dinner?
You know, I'd love pot stickers tonight. And
unless you want pizza, because I'm doing an oven night. Everything else is going to be made in the oven.
Pizza.
You want karai on your pizza?
Whatever you want to put on the top of it.
Just surprise you with Indian spices.
Yes.
And MSG. And extra pepperoni.
Of course, MSG. I do not know how Americans went so long making pizza without MSG. What were they thinking?
Well, and with cutting it with that, what is this pizza wheel nonsense when you just can get a pair of scissors? For the love.
For the love.
Yeah, I just, your experience in Korea, I feel like the most valuable thing that I've taken away from it personally is the scissors. I love the scissors for food cutting. For food cutting.
Yeah, I know. But I love that. Yeah, I saw that in Korea. I was like, oh, scissors.
Brilliant. Yeah, it changed everything.
All right. I love you to death, Simone. You're a great wife. A very, very good wife.
You're a good husband.
Honestly, you're so good. I'm not even going to beat you today.
Aw, what a shame.
Did we get too close to saying that somebody having pride in being white is okay in this episode? Too close?
No comment. No comment.
We didn't say that, by the way. I think it's horrible. I think anyone who has white pride is a horrible, disgusting human being. And
well, I just think it's weird because what is white?
Well, no, you should have pride in your specific group, but understand that there might be a larger alliance of groups that are being victimized for the same reason you're victimized. I mean, when somebody denies me a job, they're not doing it because I'm from the backwoods cultural tradition or because I'm from the Puritan cultural tradition. They're doing it because of the color of my skin.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's helping me to better understand this. And the whole Latinx concept.
I mean, like, look, the Catholics used to burn my ancestors at the stake, right? Like, we don't have a history of an alliance, but right now,
well, I mean, yeah, I think in general, I may be wrong about this, but probably the vast majority of violence that has been subject to any particular ethnic or cultural group has been from people within those groups. The call is normally coming from inside the house. Yeah. So, yeah. The intergroup hate is widely covered, but not the big source of the problem. So,
all right. Love you to death, Simone. You're
Bye,
great.
Malcolm.
Bye.
I'll call you when dinner's ready.
Oh, we're gonna do a mix of pot stickers, right? Some veggie,
I
some
thought we were
meat.
doing pizza. We can do pot stickers.
Pizza. Oh yeah, pizza, not pot stickers. Get the pizza.
Yeah. I'm gonna make a little bit of like sacrificial freezer mystery chicken as well, because I think you're just gonna want to throw it away.
No.
You're gonna want to throw it away. Well, then should I just feed it directly to the chickens without?
No. Just what are you? Did you already defrost it?
Mm-hmm.
Then do it tomorrow.
I'm just
you're
not gonna want to eat it though anyway. So I'm just like,
I don't want you to overfeed me. I hate when you make dishes that are too big because
so you just want 1/4 of a pizza. That's so little food.
I don't want that much food.
Okay,
look, Simone, if you are going to do it, then do it and do the rice and everything like that.
No, I'm not gonna do the rice. No, I was just gonna. I'll save the chicken for another night, I guess. But I'll go with the pot stickers. Yeah, I'm imposing my pregnancy mindset on you. I'm ravenous.
Could I do a third of pizza instead of a quarter?
Oh, you want more?
A third, but not a quarter. Not half. Half is too big.
Okay, yeah. At least then I don't feel like I'm. Well, I'm also doing sourdough. Would you just like fresh sourdough with jam instead of a third of a pizza?
The sourdough is. Oh yeah, sourdough with jam is great. Oh, can you put cheese on top of it?
I would have to cut it and then toast it, but I can totally do that.
Oh, no. Then just the pizza and the sourdough is jam. Maybe a bit more than a quarter, but not a full third, and that's what I'm having tonight. That was the sourdough.
Sounds good.
All right, love you.
I love you too. Sexy women with zebra face paint hanging in golden cages to figure out what to do, what to create. That makes sense. Fun. We'll see. I'm just, yeah. I think I've watched the "What Does the Fox Say" video with her children so many times that I just whenever
they love this video.
What does the fox say? That's like their favorite song of all time. That's why they all want fox plushies. That's why they all want to dress up like foxes. That's why Indy's second words are ning 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 ning.
That's where the fox plushie came from. I should have known.
Well, I mean, the fox plushie came from Steve and Minka, but they loved it because it's the fox.
And what does the fox say?
Well, they know what the fox
says. It is
says.
a great children's song now that I think about it. You know, it's funny that it became popular as like a song for adults, but like it's more of a children's song.
Oh, I mean, and Indy loves it as she's like learning words because it's very, like I said, like she'll just like randomly be like ding 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 ding. She speaks fox.
She can speak at fox just
before she speaks human. Yeah, but no, really, she's a Pokemon because her first actual real words are Indy.
Indy. She points to herself. Indy.
She won't say mommy.
You are trying to. My wife tried to get her to understand who she is, and so she'd point to Indy and she'd go, Indy, mommy, daddy.
Mm-hmm.
She can get Indy and no one else.
Yeah.
Indy. It's not mommy or daddy first. Actually, that's kind of wild because like mama and dad are supposed to be like easy words for kids to say.
Yeah. No.
At first, no, very clearly her first word is her own name and she knows exactly what she's talking about.
There's no ambiguity. She'll never say it pointing at anything but herself. It's amazing. Oh, well.
I like that. That's the type of kid I want to raise. Come on.
Pride, man. Yeah, people are like, how could you name your daughter Industry? Whenever I post some like Instagram photo that has her in it or something, and I mentioned, you named your child Industry. She seems pretty happy about it, people.
Yeah, she seems to dig it. All of our kids like their names, to be honest. Because I asked them, I'm like, would you want another name? And they're like, no, this is
no.
Tex is the next one.
Tex. Get
a good old fashioned American name.
It's good.
All right.